Hi everyone, I'm Dad.
I'm Dottie.
And we are
Dad and Dottie. Formula 1-0.
I love it. I love the enthusiasm, and that enthusiasm I hope is going to translate to the F1 2025 season. What do you think?
Yes.
I hope so. Now today we are going to talk about something that should be for everyone. And this means everyone. So if you are a pro at F1 or new, or you're even thinking about, I want to maybe get into F1, still not 100% sure, maybe, what's it all about? So today we are going to talk about what's it all about, giving you the basics. You want to talk about that?
Yeah.
I very much like it. Okay, so now that we're going to start talking about this, first things first, how many teams are in Formula One?
It is 10.
There's 10 teams.
There's Williams.
And now the challenge is you've got to name all 10 teams.
What?
Yes.
In how many seconds?
It doesn't, I don't think, we're not going to do it timed. But,
Okay, good, because there's 5 billion.
Okay, go for it.
Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, Williams, Alpine. The one that's like BMW, what was that one called?
The one that's like BMW.
The one that's like pink and blue.
Pink and blue. You already said Alpine.
Oh, it was Alpine.
It was Alpine. Who else do we have? You already said Williams. You got 5 more that you got to get.
Oh my God!
Oh no!
Wait, I know this.
Haas?
Haas.
Red Bull sister team?
Red Bull sister team.
Mm-hmm. RB. Yep. What else? What else do we got?
Okay, how many do I have right now?
You got 7.
I need 3.
I'm getting nervous.
I'm getting nervous too.
Any clues that we might have anywhere?
Mercedes.
I think you had already said Mercedes. No, you had to say, okay, Mercedes. What else do you got? Because we're looking at our model F1 cars that we got up there. The green one?
I thought the green one. Aston Martin.
And then the last one, just because I actually don't have a model of it, it's Kick Sauber.
Oh, I always forget about Kick Sauber.
I think that should be all our 10. So those are 10 teams. Okay, so now that we know all our 10 teams, we also have to know that there's levels or tiers within the teams, right? So within those teams, there's going to be tiers. Some teams are amazing. Some tiers not very good. And then there's teams.
Okay, you're good. You're not the best. You're not the worst, but you're not the best.
So we call those the midfield teams.
Midfield.
Right? So we got the top tier, we got the bottom tier, and then we got the midfield teams. Okay, so why does that really matter for us? It matters.
So then people know who to root for.
Okay, so typically people tend to root for the teams that typically tend to be at the top. Who are the major teams that people always typically tend to root for?
I think Ferrari, McLaren, and Red Bull.
Yep, those, I would say that. And probably even Mercedes, right? So those are pretty much your top 4 teams. McLaren, Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull. Yeah. And everyone kind of knows a little bit about each one of those, right? That you've heard the Ferrari name. You've heard the Mercedes name, of course.
You've heard Red Bull, of course.
You've heard Red Bull because you do the drinks, or because you've seen Max or Checo somewhere, being promoted. And then you've also heard about McLaren because McLaren is
a car.
It's a famous car brand. So it's important.
The car in general.
Yeah. So part of it is kind of knowing who these teams are, because as we go through the season, there's always going to be movement in terms of where the teams are going to be at, right?
And some people might even get fired like last year.
That's true. So then within each team, how many cars are in each team?
There are 2 cars.
There are 2 cars.
But there is an extra car for a reserve driver.
I don't think that there's a reserve driver car. We don't have a reserve driver car. What we have is a reserve driver that can drive either of those cars.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, back in the day, there were 3 cars. So they used to have the 2 cars and then a backup car. So then if you crashed one, you could jump in the extra car, in the spare car, and you could take off. Isn't that weird? That was pretty awesome back in the day, but not anymore. Okay.
Because then that's cheating.
Now, now we would actually consider that to be cheating. So there are 2 drivers in each one of the teams. Typically, one driver is the star, one driver is kind of the backup or the support. Typically, we would assume that teams compete against each other. So, for instance, Ferrari's competing against Red Bull and McLaren, and they're all fighting for the top spots. And we're going to talk about what that means in a bit. But sometimes we also find that the drivers, the teammates, fight with each other. Do you know any examples of that?
You.
I'm sure you do.
I can't remember it on the top of my head, y'all.
Okay, so let's think, for instance, in Red Bull with Max and Checo.
Max and Checo, they always fight.
Well, they wouldn't fight all the time, but when they would, sometimes they would fight when Checo was fighting for the first, for the top spot, for getting first place. But Max wanted to be in first place, so sometimes they would, have fights with each other. Sometimes teams tell one driver or the other, move over, so that way your other teammate who's better than you or who's faster than you, they can win. What do we call those orders?
We call those team orders. We actually have a video.
We do have a video on that. So I will link also the video for team orders.
Y'all should watch that one. That one's very good.
It's a good video. It is a good video. Now, also, another thing that we need to look at, let me look at my notes here because I was instructed to have notes this time because I typically don't have notes. Let's talk about the number of races that happen in a typical season.
Number of races. Oh, 24 races.
24 races.
So that means
Mhm.
there should be 24 cars, but there's only 20.
yeah, right. So there's 20 cars. Now it doesn't mean that there's only going to be 10 teams because remember we also made a video
About the new team.
for what you remember?
Cadillac. And
Cadillac.
I'm calling that kayak.
Okay, you
because
called it
that's
kayak.
easier.
Yeah, you called it kayak.
Because it's
So we do
easier
have-
to say.
So we do have Cadillac that is going to be joining
Kayak.
in 2026. Now, sometimes teams change names. They get sold, different sponsors, so on and so forth. So sometimes teams change. So for instance, when we look at Aston Martin, before Aston Martin became Aston Martin, it used to be called Racing Point. Before it was Racing Point, it was called Force India, and so on and so forth. So sometimes teams.
What was McLaren called before?
McLaren was McLaren.
Oh, just always been McLaren.
Yeah,
McLaren.
Yeah.
McLaren.
I think at one point it was called
McLaren.
like McLaren Mercedes. I think at one point because they were together and then they split. But yeah, so it's important to know how many races because the races take place where? Do you know, like in one certain place or in
different places? It does not matter. Actually, it does matter, but
it
still,
does matter. Yeah.
Like one day they can be in like Miami,
Mhm.
United States.
Yeah.
And the next day they'll be in like Japan.
That's true. So the races take place all over the world. So they go all the way from the Middle East, where they actually begin in Bahrain, and they go all around the world to Australia. They go to Miami in the U.S. They go to Texas in Austin. They go to Las Vegas. They go out to Brazil in South
You know
America.
where else they go?
Where else do they go?
They go to one of the places we've been before. I forgot what it's called.
Singapore?
Not Singapore.
In England?
Not England.
In
It's in Spain.
in Spain, in Barcelona.
Barcelona, yeah.
In Barcelona, yeah. So they go to Barcelona as well in Spain.
Oh, they go to Italy. No.
They do go to Italy. There's 2 races in Italy. So some countries get
Yay!
2 or more races. It kind of depends. But not every.
Depends how popular the country is.
Yeah. So,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Oh.
Sometimes, yeah, it depends on how popular the countries are or the countries that have money that they can give. Yeah. Okay, so we've got those out of the way. So next thing. So we talked about the teams and they're fighting for positions. Now there's 2 types of championships that occur within Formula One.
So
There's
these,
2 championships.
One of those needs teamwork, which is the driver, not the drivers.
No.
Wait, what was it called again?
You know what it's called.
Constructors Championship.
The
And
Constructors
that one
Championship.
is for the team.
That's right.
Let's say Max, every race gets 10 points, but Checo gets 0.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
As a
10
team,
So it's 240. Usually he doesn't get that.
that is good
But
math.
200. So they would end up with 240 points as
A team.
there as a team.
That's right. So,
But that also means Checo would have 0 and Max would have 240 as their final.
that's right.
As his driver. So then he might get first or he might get second.
That's right. So teams, there's two types of championships. The first one's the constructors. The constructors is the team championship. So the team has to work together. So both drivers have to work together to get as many points as they possibly can.
And if they get 0 points at the bottom.
That's right.
Bottom,
Now, this is important also.
Bottom.
In the positions that they stay in at the end of the race, we always talk about first, second, and third. But points get distributed beyond first, second, and third. Points can get distributed from first all the way to which position?
10.
All the way to 10th. Exactly right. So it goes all the way from first all the way to 10th position. So as the lower you get,
20th?
20th doesn't get anything. So beyond 10, you don't get any points at all. Now, some big rule changes that happened. Last year, they used to do an extra point for the driver that finished the fastest lap, and they were in the top 10 positions. This year, they're not doing that anymore. So there's no extra point for fastest lap, which is important. Okay,
That's
now the
really
second
sad,
championship
'cause
is
everyone
the
got
driver.
an extra point.
So the second championship is the driver's championship. So the driver's championship is only about who?
It's about that singular driver.
So it's only about that one single driver. So whoever it is at the end of the season who scores the most points of all the drivers wins the driver's championship. Now, why is this important? Because drivers get money because they win races and their positions that they score in every single race, they get like bonuses. But with the constructors, whoever is at the very top, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, in that order, that also means how much money they get for future car developments.
Oh.
So if they win the constructors, like McLaren did this last year,
Yes.
they get more money than the ones who stayed in second place. So in second was Ferrari, so they get less money that they're given for winning the constructors, and then so on and so forth, right? Which is a big deal, right? Because it's not just about, well, who's going to get the money? Well, the drivers get the money. No, the entire team gets the money. And that means mechanics, people at the factory, everyone gets bonuses at the very end of the year because everyone works together as a team to win the constructors. Did you know that? You sure did know that. Okay, so those are our two. Now, let's talk a little bit about past winners. So last year, who won the constructors?
McLaren.
McLaren did. And the drivers? Max Verstappen, exactly right. So the constructors can be one team who won, and the drivers can be a completely different team member who won. So they don't always have to be the same, and that's important for us to know. Okay.
Yes, even though Lando was like...
Lando, who's one of the drivers for McLaren, that close. Lando, you were that close. We were rooting for you, Lando, that whole time.
Like his fingers were basically touching it.
So now this means that we're going to talk about important people
that
we need to know about in Formula One. So who are the most famous drivers? So give me the top 3 famous drivers that you know.
This is so easy.
Tell me.
It's Max.
Max Verstappen.
Charles.
Okay, Charles.
Is he popular?
He's very popular.
And obviously,
Mm-hmm.
the one and only Lando Norris.
Lando Norris. And I would say you're probably missing one. Charles's teammate?
Oh yeah, Carlos. He's so preppy.
Not Carlos.
Lewis.
Lewis Hamilton. I would say Lewis is probably the most famous of all the current drivers. No, who do you think is? Lando Norris. Okay, we're going to talk about each one of them just for a minute. Max Verstappen is very important to know about because Max has been the driver's champion for the last 4 years in a row. That's amazing. That's incredible. Now, if you're thinking, well, I mean, really, is it that big of a deal? You're driving around in a car and you see if you can win. It's a huge deal. Cars
Because you get like $1 billion.
Well, you don't get that much, but that would be nice.
That would be
but
very nice.
these drivers are driving extraordinarily fast. They're driving these incredible machines in very, very narrow, sometimes street circuits.
Oh yes, the street circuits are so pretty, but the drivers are like this in their car.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, exactly right. They're in very, very tight, confined spaces, and they're very, very athletic, and they're dealing with a lot of speed and a lot of G-forces, a lot of force pulling them in different directions, in all these different directions that it's pulling them. So it's really important that they're very, very athletic. So Max being a 4-time world champion in a row, that's pretty incredible. Now, the second one we'll talk about is Lewis Hamilton, and I'll be honest with you, Lewis is much, much more in terms of fame, I would say, than Max, because Lewis has been around for a number of years.
He has more than at least 10 sponsors.
More than at least 10 sponsors, yes. How many drivers' championships has Lewis won?
7?
7 drivers' championships, exactly right.
And that means Max is coming really close.
Max is coming close, but with those 7 drivers' championships that he's won, he's tied for the most drivers' championships that have ever been won. He's tied with Michael Schumacher. But it's important to know because he's still driving, and now he's going to be driving with Ferrari, being teammates with Charles Leclerc, who is the Ferrari golden boy. Absolutely.
He's just like, when I think of Ferrari, I think of Charles, I think of Carlos, and Carlos is no longer there.
Carlos is no longer there. Did you say Williams? You did say Williams, right? Yes, you did, in terms of the number of teams. I couldn't remember. I'm still thinking about that. But, yeah, you did. But Ferrari...
That was one of the first ones I said.
It was one of the first ones they said. But Lewis is going to be driving for Ferrari, so he's going to be driving this incredible, incredible car. He used to drive for Mercedes and now switched over to Ferrari. Now, also, we'll talk about Lando Norris, because Lando's up and coming. He is
the McLaren Golden Boy.
He is the McLaren Golden Boy. Now, in terms of Lando Norris, hasn't won a driver's championship. He barely won this year a constructor's championship with his teammate Oscar Piastri for McLaren. But he's working his way to maybe get.
He was literally like.
He was so close.
He basically already won it.
Exactly.
And then Max got that one singular point.
Well, it was more than 1 point, but it was pretty close there for a little while. Okay, so we now know who was the previous driver's champion. We've got some key figures to look out for, and we've also talked about the constructor's champion from last year. Now, the last things that we're going to talk about before we end for tonight is let's talk about some fun facts. So, number 1, who has won the most drivers' championships that I just mentioned?
Who has won the most drivers' championships? It's either...
I already said. I said it.
I know.
Who? Okay.
But because it's tied.
Okay.
Michael Schumacher thingy.
Yeah, Michael Schumacher. Yeah.
And Lewis Hamilton.
And Lewis Hamilton.
Or
exactly.
Ham.
Yeah, that's right. Or Ham, as you like to call him. Okay. Also, with all these races, here's some fun facts. I would say fun fact. Yeah, I would say fun fact.
Yeah.
So, out of the 24 races, there's some very, very famous tracks that we have to keep in mind. The most famous track of them all, what would you say is? Where is it?
This is so hard.
But that everybody knows. It's iconic.
Monaco.
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 Monaco. In the Principality of Monaco, where Charles Leclerc is from. And
he won one of his races there.
He did win last year. He won his home race in Monaco. So it's a street circuit, very, very tight and narrow street that these Formula One cars have to drive on. And it's very, very famous. A lot of celebrities go. There's a lot of fanfare. It's amazing. Now, other key tracks to kind of keep in mind this year, Silverstone in the United Kingdom is very, very important to remember because it's also an iconic track in England.
And you know what else?
Where else?
Austin.
In Austin, I'm going to say Austin's pretty awesome because we live in Texas.
We are going to Austin.
We are going to go this year. I am taking you this year. We didn't go last year, but we are going this year.
You went with
together. I did go with Mommy, but this year we are going to go together. Because someone posted a comment of, why didn't I take you on one of our other videos? And I was like, well, I think you may have actually posted that. But
subscribe to my singular channel.
I did not take you to Austin because I did not know how it was. It was my first race. So I was a little worried. I wasn't sure how it was going to be. But this year, it's going to be awesome because it's pretty family friendly. So if you are interested in trying to find a race that you want to go to, there's so many to pick from. If you're here in the US, there's 3, right? It's Austin, Miami. Miami's first, Austin is second, and then Las Vegas is third. I've been to the Austin one. It's pretty amazing. I like it's very family friendly, and it's just a cool place.
It's just Austin.
It is, and it's Austin.
It's just
very,
Austin.
very cool. Okay, so that wraps up our discussion of the basics for Formula One. Anything that you want to say before we leave?
Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow us on Instagram.
Sure.
Subscribe.
And
And speak to those notifications, everybody.
all
I
right.
almost hit you again.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Have a great night.
I almost hit you
Uh-oh.
again.
It's not turning off.